But when we were
than being in
there,
the
oh my
desert.
gosh, it was so windy some of the days. So we were just like camping in a little tent, and we left our tent to go work on a project for a few hours. We come back, and all of a sudden the tents flew away over there. It's ripped up with brambles, holes everywhere, completely destroyed. Like, it must have been crazy coming to this new piece of land and having to put up this yurts and all this stuff to
Yeah,
to
that is
just
a
to
good
live
point.
initially.
Well, yeah, well, you're describing what it's like in
Okay.
springtime here in New Mexico is generally windy. But yeah, I mean, when we were first setting up here, we actually live on an old railroad bed. The main access into our property is an old coal mining railroad bed, and it's covered with coal. So it's partly I think they made the roadbed out of coal, and then maybe some of it spilled off, but yeah, we were putting up the yurt. So it was like the one flat spot. It's a very hilly land that we have. And the flat spot was right on the railroad bed. And so we were, it was rustic back in those days. We were covered with coal dust, when we were putting up the yurt. And a friend of ours came and brought a load of wood chips, which was very exciting, to just kind of keep the dust down. Yeah, so that was 20 years ago now, and we've come a long way since then.
And that was you and your partner at that point? Okay,
me and Andy,
cool.
My husband. Yeah.
And you guys moved, were you living in like an on-grid home and you decided to move off-grid and bought this property, or what was that decision like and why?
I guess we had been living off the grid already. Like, we had been living in a few different places in northern New Mexico, and we were kind of hoping to find a community, kind of hoping to find a farm or something like that where we could join in a project that was already existing. And we went to some different places, and a couple of them were off the grid, and the off the grid lifestyle was fine for us. We loved camping, and all that was good, but it's hard, and I'm sure that you've experienced, with talking with lots of people, the difficulty of living in community. And by the time when we got this place, we were kind of like, well, that stuff didn't work. We just need to find our own place. And it just kind of ended up being here. It was, it's beautiful land, and it's more than we needed, but they don't really sell this. It's hard. At the time, it was hard to find parcels that were smaller. And so it's 38 acres that we have here, but it's very hilly. It's gorgeous. It's like lots of sandstone and stuff. But yeah, so we found this place, there's no water. There's some major issues with the impact of the railroad bed, the erosion and stuff that we've had to take care of. But there's basically just it was a very dry year as well. So it was dry land, but beautiful, no water, lots of coal dust.
Yeah, that's so cool. And so, like,
that's starting point.
Yeah. I know, right? And we have experienced a lot of issues in community. It was on national TV, my struggles with being able to get along in community. It's really tough. But the cool thing is, community can also look like a bunch of different things, even by providing space for volunteers or for people who are coming to learning. They're meeting like-minded souls maybe for the first time, and you're providing this opportunity for them to find community or start that journey for themselves, which is so cool. That's how I started too.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to woofing spaces and work exchange kind of community spots where the community that I've been part of for the past 2 years, it's like an egalitarian community. We're going there, there's consensus, there's all this stuff. But I would have never gone there if there wasn't people who were able to help me along that journey, that were providing space in these different communities all across the world, to get to the person I am today and be so open to community. Anyway.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. I think it's I'm glad that you recognize that. And, we are very dedicated to community here. And, you've mentioned you've seen that we have people coming through and, we have a residency program. We used to have an internship program. And and then we have apprentices that come once a week and, come join us, for what we're doing and being together. But yeah, there are a lot of different ways to experience community. And I think that there's so much, in the mainstream American culture anyway, there's been so much disconnect and breakdown of, essential community ties or essential, even it's like social technologies, customs, and all of that help us to live with each other. There's just been in the past couple hundred years, the way people move around, and we're disconnected from our extended families often. So we need to relearn how to just be in community and what that means. So I think of our place as it's temporary community, and we're very intentional about how we are, and we have certain rituals and structures for how we are together. And so I think of it like there's things to learn with what we're trying to do here, and how we are together in the time that we are. And then, the people leave and we leave that community. We're holding the community, but we leave that particular community as well. So there are always some seeds we all take with us of what we learned, in terms of trying to make this whole world, trying to make our culture something that works with having regenerative practices on the land. It's a long way to go for us to learn that, in this culture. So
yeah,
we're starting
and it's cool
somewhere.
that a space like that can offer like a practice for people, like as opposed to maybe their first time being in community, being okay, I'm gonna get together with my friends and they've never they've spent their whole life living in their own apartment where they make the rules, and then they try to go into that, and it's like shockingly difficult. Like spaces, like we've been to a couple different spaces like that where it's kind of like, you're volunteering on someone's homestead, but while you're there, you're living in community with the other volunteers and with the people living there. And it's changing every couple weeks. There's a new, but in that way you like practice, not being completely self-centered, being like, okay, I am in flow with these other people. I am needing to compromise, and I need to do this. And that's why a lot of people reach out to us about like how to get started. And I think that woofing and workaways is one of the best ways, especially in places where it is like community is and it's not so much just like working for someone. It's like when community is emphasized, that's really special, I think, because you're right, it's like such a valuable experience.
And the only other time we even get to like vibe with that other than our actual blood family is maybe if you go to college. You have like this living situation for a moment where you're co-housing with someone, and so it's great to create all these kind of alternatives.
Yeah, and then also when you add in like, okay, we need to be in community with each other, but also we have to design our lives around the land, the place, the weather, then it adds a whole other level of, because it's like we're in community with the land, we're in community with the clouds, and the span of a day, how the sun moves through the sky. That's part of what's really important that we're in community with. And so when you're like solar cooking, you have to start the food in the morning, and you're tracking the sun and planning around the sunlight. And then when it might rain, is a special time, but you can't cook with the sun on those days, and then you have to go around and check which tanks are full, and there's things that we need to do to be in relationship with the land and with the infrastructure that we've created that helps support our life, while being in community. And it's a whole different learning
that's the one
experience.
word that I wanted to say is relationship, like relationship with the land, relationship with each other. That's what we all, we really need to learn again. And that's what's kind of been stripped away from us. And therefore, of course, it's so easy to destroy our relationships with people and the earth because we don't have one in the first place, and solar cooking, that's a great way for, I'm really into pea cycling because, I'm urinating every day. I want to recycle it. Right. And so like, that's a little way for people, I think, to connect with nature again and understand our system. But solar cooking, oh my God, I've been trying to get into it.
We've tried a couple times and failed miserably, but we bought like little shitty ones. We need to do like
what kind of thing do you have? Do you have like one of them huge metal dishes or a bottle? Or like what's it look like?
Yeah. Well, we actually have a number of solar cookers now, but one of them, we have two of those parabolic cookers. They're like 3 feet across, and it's like shaped like a satellite dish. Yeah, and it bounces all the light to this one place where you put your pot on the tray. And so that's a hot cooker. That you can boil beans, you can boil things for a long time. I mean, I've even seen someone making donuts on it. So boiling oil and like up to 500 degrees. Yeah. So you have to be careful in that one. And I've had a lot of people burn our pots, by letting the water boil away and then everything. Yeah, that's not something you want to do. So it's good to also have the slow cookers, And so those box cookers, the ones that we have here are ones that we made, and they're from Barbara Kerr's design. And I actually have the plans for it on my website. I had someone make the construction plans for this solar oven. It's called the solar wall oven. And it's called a wall because you can put it, the door is in the back, so you can install it into the south wall of your house.
Wow.
And then you don't have to go outside to access, your food. So I have one of those attached on my greenhouse, and you can't turn it as the sun moves through the sky, but it's, it's good to have a variety, basically.
I just imagine sitting in my greenhouse, realizing my tea or my coffee's cold, putting it out right there, and there we go. Come back later, warm again, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's an easy one for sure. I mean, I cooked this morning. I had an apprentice come at 9, and I put some quinoa in one of the slow cookers, and I put a delicata squash I just cut in half and took the seeds out, and I put that in like a cast iron pot in another slow cooker, and they just get to, I think when I took them out they were at like 240, so not super hot. But then we were working, so she came and we were working, planting seeds and all this stuff, and by the time I'm ready thinking about lunch, I looked at those things and they were done. And you don't have to worry about, with the slow cooking, about it overcooking too much and getting it at the right time. So yeah, they were ready.
That's so cool. And so like, I remember you just mentioned a minute ago about like the structures within community. What does that look like? I know on your website, I read that there was preventative health community practices.
Yeah. So the one main one that we have is doing a talking circle, just using a talking stick, So we do that every week, and it can just be a fun thing where people are sharing what's in their hearts or on their minds. It's also a time when, it's just basically, if you have the stick or whatever object we choose, then you're the talker, or you can pass it, and everybody else is listening, and it's a time to just come together and listen to each other. So it's a safe space. You're not gonna get interrupted, and so it's a good time. I encourage people to bring up, like, how's it going with how comfortable are you feeling in your housing situation, or how's the workflow going, or how's the food working for you? Just a time to share. And if you don't create those spaces, then sometimes that stuff that's not working for people just doesn't come up because they don't feel like there's ever kind of the right time. So that's the main practice that we have that is definitely preventative health.
Preventative as in, right, it gives it time before it to blow up for you guys to kind of like release and talk about everything that's going on. Yeah, that's super important.
Yeah.
So how many people? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we also. Well, I was just going to mention our morning meetings are also really important. So, and it's only a couple days a week that we're really like come together and are working together. And it depends on the season and just what happens to be going on around here. And you were just asking how many people do we have around? I mean, it used to be, we had a internship program, and one time we had 8 interns here for 2-month period of time. That is too intense for us. We did that for like 6 years, and we're like, okay, we're done with that. But sometimes, we'll have like a couple apprentices who come once a week, and then we might have 1 or 2 people other than me and Andy who are living here. And so it could be, a group of up to 6 people who are, we come together whatever time we're starting, depending, right now it's 9, but it would be earlier when it gets really hot. And then we just bring whatever we are bringing to the day, how we're feeling, if we have like maybe a scheduled phone call with your mom at some time, or, what, like, oh, there's mouse got into the yurt and we have to deal with that, like whatever people are bringing should be shared. And then also our projects for the day, like where are we at with these projects, who wants to do what and who's making food. And, so we come together and spend the time to just make everything clear and take care of what needs to be taken care of, and then go start doing our projects.
For example, what kind of projects have you been working on the past year? Or probably a lot.
Well, let's see. I'm trying to think. I mean, right now in the springtime, we grow seedlings to sell to our community as fundraisers for our site. So that's happening right now, and so we grow a lot. And so every day we're starting seeds and we're starting to transplant things, and then come April and May, then we'll have a bunch of plant sales and sell them. So that's one thing that's going on right now, that we kind of reserve, the springtime to have that be the main focus. But we finally got a wood stove installed in the yurt in the fall, so that so we can use it over the winter a little bit better. We built some stairs. We have what we call a nap nest, and it's like a tree house, but it's on top of this house, and you get there from the outside. So we don't have tall trees here, so it's as close as you get to a tree house. But it's a little chill space where there's windows looking in every direction, and it's like there's lots of cushions, and it's a relaxation space. And it's very nice. But it's been the place where we store the 10-foot ladder, right up against there, so that you go up the ladder and then you can get in, So we finally built some stairs that help us access it without having to hang around on the ladder, and we can use the ladder for other things and still use the space. So those are some examples.
So cool. And so for the seedlings, what success have you had in selling them? Like, what do people really want in New Mexico?
Well, yeah, so I take the seedlings into Madrid. I live near a little town. It's like a town of 300 people, but then there's the surrounding area is a larger community, but Madrid or Madrid, you can call it either one. It's the hub. So that's where I've been doing this for like 8 years or 9 years or so, and I have one plant sale in April and one in May. And the April one, I sell the frost tolerant things because it's still freezing here at that time. And in May, I sell the tomatoes and everything. So over time, I mean, people
Right.
know that we are growing transplants every year, and there's plenty of gardeners around here that that you know I am very into growing really good seedlings, and so I don't sell anything if it's not, you know, it's a really good
Primo.
quality plant. And yes, and the soil that's in it too is really important. So we do lots of composting here, and I make my own potting soil, mostly with things collected from here, where there's different kinds of compost and also sand we get from the arroyo. And so also what I'm doing is I'm inoculating people's gardens with the good microbial life in the soil in each of those plants. So I always hear from people, oh my gosh, my tomatoes that I got from you did so well this year, but not necessarily the ones I got from somebody else. And, I mean, so there's a good reputation for the ampersand seedlings, and that's how
Wow,
we
that's
make it
amazing.
work.
And sorry, what the stand from where?
So arroyo is a word that is used for the dry wash, the water drainage area. It's like a sandy,
Okay.
gulch or something. But so it's the place that will flood when we have hard rains, then it'll be the place where there's water flooding. But most of the time it's just a sandy, dry riverbed, So that's the place where we get
So you
sand
put a lot
from.
of attention into like your soil building and everything as well to try to like create that diverse, rich environment. That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested in not just what we're doing here, but the whole community having
Yeah.
some food security. It's a very dry area that I live in, and it's not easy to garden. So I want to make it as easy as possible for people. And the more people who are gardening and having greenhouses and, growing food, the more, food secure our whole area will be. So I'm really promoting that and trying to help our larger community with that, as well as the greenhouses. I mean, over time, I've discovered some years are very low rainfall. So in a normal year, we'll get 8 or 9 inches of rainfall, and some years are like 5. I haven't actually calculated last year yet because I just write it down on a little piece of paper and my little rain gauge. But I'm gonna guess it was 6 or less inches. So when it's like that, then all of those creatures out on the land, they want to eat your food too. They want to eat whatever's in your garden, and especially for people who have small gardens. So it can be a real problem, like mice and pack rats and squirrels and rabbits, coming and eating everything. So actually I have because when you live off rain catchment like we do, like we only
Right.
have the rain. So I mean we can get water delivered. And we have to do that once in a while, but once in a while meaning certainly not every year. But I can't be wasting my water by watering plants that are just feeding rodents, So that's why I am growing in greenhouses, and I have a third greenhouse. So I have 3 different kinds of greenhouses now that are ideally rodent proof and have different kind of microclimates. So that's how I've discovered to grow food the best here, and I try to promote these different,
And that
greenhouse
makes
designs
sense for
for the
resiliency too,
neighborhood.
to have 3 different ones that are slightly different, I guess, right? So that in different weather conditions and stuff, it's like something might
Yeah.
go through or whatever. Yeah, just diversity. You do
Yes,
everything one
exactly.
way, you could lose everything.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, there's the hoop house. Well, I call it the hoop house, but it's a high tunnel greenhouse, and it freezes in there over the winter. But there's a lot of things that will grow, with being frozen, lettuces and kale and things like that, and chard. So there's always greens down there, even even throughout the coldest winter. And then it is very nice to have the warmer spaces where I have lemons and tomatoes
Right.
through the
Yeah, that
winter.
makes sense.
I was seeing a video that you're heating up one of your greenhouses with solar. It's not solar panels, right? What have we got going on there?
Right. Okay. So yeah, that's I've named her Flora, the sunken greenhouse. So she's got two solar
Oh, it is solar
panel
panels. Okay.
situations. One is, well, no. One is, I'm going to tell you about both of them. And the one you're asking about is going to be the second one. But just to clarify, because there are photovoltaic panels on there and they run a fan when the sun comes out. You know, when the sun hits the panels, it'll just run a fan, so it doesn't need a battery or anything. So, and that's all salvaged. That's like I went to a junkyard to get a 12-volt DC fan out of a car so that I could just run it on those 12-volt panels. But the heater part is, so that is a panel that is probably from the 70s, and we got it salvaged. I tested it first to make sure that it wasn't leaking, but then I hooked it up to a hose and just used radiator hose tubing, like heater hose you can get from an auto parts store. And so it's got glycol solution in it. So when it freezes, it won't expand and break the copper tubing that's in there. So it's glycol solution basically in copper tubing that's in a panel that's just collecting, passive sunlight. So it'll heat up, just going through the glass and collecting in the black box. And then when that glycol solution heats up, it creates pressure, it expands a bit, and it pushes up. And so because Flora is sunken in the ground onto a hill, there's even a lower place. So the panel is lower than where it's going into the greenhouse. So that's what the thermosiphoning, solar thermosiphoning is what it is. So just the heat of the fluid itself pushes up. It has pressure in it. So it pushes up through this hose that goes through basically a cob attachment onto the wall of the greenhouse and then loops back down through the soil and goes back out. So it's just transferring heat from the glycol solution that went through the panel in the hose into the wall, to add more heat in the winter to the greenhouse, or to save it up for those cold nights that are like
That's
especially
amazing. Wow.
cold.
Yeah, because I thought it was like some water and pump kind of thing going on, but I didn't know it was all this whole pressure and different vibe. Like, that's so cool. Yeah, because we were just in in Nepal, and literally every single house there or every single building is all using solar energy from just like heating up the water in tubes and whatever. But so cool. I didn't know this whole other vibe.
Awesome.
Just in
Where
Nepal, all over there.
But just because they don't have the infrastructure to do it through like a whole grid-based system, so they're just adopting like these same practices.
Yeah, and then you're using gray water to feed your plants too, right? So like water, of course, the desert. It's crazy. It's a desert for a reason. And that's just it's just going straight in there. You got.
Well, there's the gray water system. It's important for the gray water to go directly underground and not pool on the surface. So there's ways that you can just get it to go into a little chamber. I mean, if your soil is good enough, meaning it's really porous, then you can just have it outlet onto, have a little 2-inch drop, between the outlet into soil, as long as it absorbs in there right away. But it's called a mulch basin is what's generally used. Like you dig a hole, you fill it with wood chips, and then that's a place where gray water will just immediately absorb into the ground. So there's different ways you can do it. We tend to use infiltration basins here. I mean, infiltrators. So it's like you could just make it out of a 5-gallon bucket or flower pot and turn it upside down and cut a hole in the top, and then cut like drill 1-inch holes all around the sides. So you have the pipe going into there, and then you cover the top with like a tile or a rock or something. So it's just like a surge
Gotcha.
chamber. So you just have the gray water going right underground where your perennial plants can use it. And of course you have to be careful about what
Right.
soaps and things you're putting down the drain.
Wow. Yeah, when we were in Colorado as well, we were making lasagna beds. Is that a vibe for y'all? I don't know. That was the first time I heard about that. I was like, we're all making lasagna. And I got there and I'm like, all right, what are we doing? And I realized, oh no, we're in a greenhouse and we're making some beds. Did you do that there?
We haven't, I mean, yeah, it's like the lasagna beds. It's kind of a variation on sheet mulching. You know, you could just do the sheet mulching, or you could add like more and more and more layers of organic matter. And it's kind of it tends to be a longer term, you know, approach. And it definitely requires water to help it break down, and worms, you know, that help it integrate into the soil. I mean, usually in beginning our beds, we've done it different ways. The ones that are outside that have like our perennials, first we dig it really deep and we do water harvesting earthworks around them. So harvesting, maybe it's gray water or also whatever's coming down the hillside. Since we live on a hill, like we have that opportunity. So when we do have floods, that's how we shape them so that they will be absorbed into the right places. And then we backfill that with good soil, good compost. And another thing, so I haven't quite, maybe I have done lasagna. I mean, it's more of, so in Flora, the sunken greenhouse, what we did to build soil in there was it was basically just composting in there. And, you know, when you think of the lasagna bed, it's like a long-term compost, right? So we're more, it's more of a hot, shorter term compost that we were doing. And we collect food waste from Santa Fe, our closest city, twice a week. Wow. So we have this supply of, you know, some of it goes to our chickens and some of it goes to composting. And so when we were building soil, we built it with just composting food waste and putting some cardboard in there, shredding it up. You know, we got some spent mycelium from a mushroom farm and layered that in there, and just whatever we could find to make a hot compost. And so we started in one place, and then the next shipment of food waste we do it in the next place, and that just turned into, you know, rich compost right there. And then we noticed that that squash were just coming up. So squash seeds were in the compost, and they were just started sprouting. And it was like, even still, it was in March a couple of years ago, before we had even closed in the greenhouse. So it was still open. It was still winter, but it was, you know, it was a microclimate. And because we had the windows on. So we discovered that squash really likes fresh compost, squash and tomatoes. So then we planted a bunch more, and that's kind of how
we made that same
down.
Discovery, like that we just like had a compost pallet of, so like, we have squash. This is amazing. Better get used to squash. Nice. It just like loves to grow. I'm like, all right. We're always trying to get creative with cooking squash, because we're like, how can we make squash more exciting? Because it's like 80% of our diet when we're off grid. And we're like,
oh, nice. Wow. Well, I've discovered with this greenhouse that it's like a golden zucchini or golden summer squash that is so delicious. I've never gotten tired of it.
Yeah, we started doing it like butternut squash in our pizza sauce, because we would do these pizza nights, and it actually worked really well because the sweetness would like cut the acidity of the tomatoes and would make like this, and it thicken up the sauce and stuff.
It's better for your tummy too. A lot of people don't, the acidity of so much tomatoes, it ruins the stomach. So you put in that butternut squash. I don't know. We're trying different ways.
Just like sneak it into every
Sneak it in,
meal.
yeah.
Same with like collard greens. We'd end up with so many collard
Yeah.
greens. We'd be like, how do we get everyone to eat these collard greens?
Well, it's a great problem to have. Too much food.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool that you touched on like just building that resiliency for your whole community, you know, like food security is a huge one of like, you know, I feel like there's a lot of different things that draw people to off-grid lifestyle, which we also touched on, like, you know, living in more in tune with the elements and things like that, you know, just like little bits of having to chop your wood or carry your water from place to place or whatever is like something that I feel like people crave, and sometimes don't even know that they're craving that or whatever. Just convenience can lead to like this feeling of lack. And then also there's the security of like, you know, things happening that are making people be like, wait a minute, what if this whole, you know, what if I didn't suddenly have access to that or whatever, and realizing, you know, there's like off-grid feels a little bit more like safe and like having, you know, control over what you're consuming and what you need and taking your needs into your own hands. So yeah, I don't know, I just started thinking about that of, how important that is.
Yeah. Well, to a certain extent, I mean, I think sometimes people idealize living off the grid, and, you know, there's only so much you really can do. I mean, yes, we have our own electric system, we have our own water systems, and we've designed them and have them work for what we believe in, you know. But then, like right now, our batteries need to be replaced, and it's like they only last so long, and, you know, you have to replace parts, and it's part of the grid, you know. So it's like, yeah, when the power goes out in the city, then it doesn't go out here. So it's in a short-term way, you know, we're more independent, but you know, it's all connected.
Totally.
Yeah, and I think about like our chickens. Yeah, so we are getting chicken feed from the feed store for our chickens, and we also get food waste, which is also from town, which is from the grid. You know, if there wasn't food, if it was ideal and no food got wasted, we wouldn't have that for our chickens. And so we are, you know, our food security is, I mean, it's awesome. We have so many eggs and we have so many greens and, you know, tomatoes through the winter. I'm super grateful and also very aware of how connected it really is to, you know, the whole industrial supply chain.
But I mean,
you know? Yeah, but we do.
I think like that, you know, talking about for your, like, increasing it for your whole neighborhood, I think it becomes a little more feasible. It's still like, obviously, yeah, there's things that we're using that would be a whole elaborate thing to try to produce ourselves. But the more people that were doing it in a localized area, the more that it could be like, okay, cool. If we all are, you know, it's impossible, I feel like, for even a group of like 20 to be like, all right, we're making our own this, we're making our that, and you know, but the more people that would be able to do it, the more that you could imagine maybe creating kind of like a closed loop little ecosystem. Maybe.
Yeah, well, people having different skills, you know, nobody can have all the skills you need. And so, yeah, whether it's producing things or just having the skills to take care of things. Like we have a neighbor who's a blacksmith and a welder, and really glad because we don't do those things. So, and just, I think, you know, knowing your neighbors and having functional relationships with them and knowing what skills they have and checking in, you know, having people that know how to check in with each other, you know, it's all really important part of community resilience.
Sure. I mean, there's like spaces where people, you know, the power goes out and they're starving because they can't like cook their food, and it's like, oh, but they could make a fire, but they didn't, like, it's just like things like that are even so foreign to people, you know, just basic survival skills without a grid, you know.
Yeah, this is for me why I just don't see how we can progress in the off-grid movement without community being a central part of the whole thing. within your neighbors, of course,
Mhm.
but also the closer we get, the easier it gets. Like at the garden, for example, they can fluctuate from 10 to 50 people, and maybe even more in gatherings. And literally everyone is sharing one battery, which definitely helps. So that's kind of sexy. But yeah, I don't know. This new spot that we got in Missouri, we can't use any of the water there either because of over fertilization. The table it's too salty, and so now all you can do is pretty much it's rainwater as well, 100%, and unless you're getting some city water from nearby. But everyone's just digging big ponds there, and of course you can't dig ponds where you are because it's too sandy. But everyone's just digging big ponds there. It's clay and it just fills up. I noticed in one of your videos you're collecting water, of course, with a bunch of different things. But I noticed a bag. You're collecting water in a bag, like some sort of. It looked like a bag.
It's just like him.
Yeah, Yeah, I don't know. That's why I was wondering. It looked like a bag in the ground. Is it? No. Okay, never mind.
Think so.
I don't know what video I saw something in the ground that looked like a bag, and I was like, is that rainwater catchment going on there in a bag? And I was like, how is?
We have sunken tanks.
It's not a bag,
I don't think
right?
it's
just a sunken like hard metal plant. Yeah, okay, that's what I was so freaked out by. I was like, oh my gosh, a bag! I can't believe it. There's another way to collect water.
I'm so curious about.
I don't know. Whatever. Never mind. But. Anyway, rainwater catchment.
Yeah, I think that the skills, it is ideal to have everybody using one battery with the solar system and stuff. And, we've certainly like there's laws. So in Santa Fe County, you can't subdivide your property, and so there's all these legal aspects to how possible community living is, because people don't want to invest and put all of their money and effort into something that if they change their mind and they want to move away, that they can't get something back out of it, and it's possible to have agreements, legal agreements and things like that. But there's also the fact that we're kind of like swimming upstream in a way with the laws that and you cannot follow the laws as well, but there's a risk there too. So we're I guess how I think of it is we do what we can in terms of seeing how we can share, collaborate, trade tools, have shared have shared resources with people. I guess I think like at some point I gave up on the idea of having an intentional community, of having and we knew when moving here, like legally it's not set up. You're not technically supposed to have more than one main house, that has electrical and plumbing. And so you're not like, there's all of these legal reasons why that would be risky to do. But because we live in an off-grid community, and we share, we live on a road that's not county maintained, so the residents of this road, we all need to get together and take care of it together and figure out how to repair it. And I guess and we're lucky to live here in a place where there is a sense of community, and there has been for some time. It's in terms of rural areas, it's a more progressive than most. But yeah, so I think of this whole area as being an intentional community in a way. Try to think of it that way, and certainly not everyone's thinking of it that way, but it and then I'm anticipating breakdown of infrastructure that as the climate changes, as the economy changes, as there's going to be breakdown of all these different structures that have been life support systems. And if you have these practices with your neighbors, if you have these, have started building these relationships and skills and things like that, then there's a lot more possibility for when it's needed, then we might be able to all come together and share a battery.
I think it's important to be realistic also about like the transition that people might actually make in our lifetime. Like you were saying, a lot of people that have spent their life maybe saving up to do okay, and they want to keep security. They don't want to go to a community and then maybe they get kicked out and they have nothing or whatever. They want to own their house. They want to, and that's the only reasonable transition that they might make. And so for those people, I think like homesteading and offering volunteer things to people that are not ready at all to do that but need to learn, that it's all part of the same, like I see it as like a whole movement that we're all playing a different part, but it's still like you're joining the community the second you do that first woof and you start learning and you seeing what all these different people are doing. It's like you're in some step along the way, and then you realize it's super hard to live all together and whatever, you go through these different stages and of like idealized and then okay, the real reality, and then what works for you and what transition you actually could make in your lifetime to live closer to nature and to or whatever it is that's calling you to it. And yeah, it's also like okay, so maybe I've been into intentional communities where there's like one central kitchen and we eat all our meals together. And then other ones where it's like 10 houses on one plot of land with shared ownership and potlucks and whatever, which is not so different from 10 plots of land owned by different people. It's community in the same way. It's like, who cares who owns what land, whatever you need to do to satisfy those same needs. It's still building community in some way, So that makes a lot of sense.
Because we're human, right? I guess we want community in some way. There's no way around it. Otherwise we go crazy. It's not like we have to create these, completely income sharing communes where we're all trying to live in some utopia. It's about just, connecting with the earth and each other at the base of it. And how can we do that at our best, for people like ourselves, me and Julia, like we really like, feeling strong relationship with people. We're actually, we're kind of good at being with like new and random people all the time. So like being at the garden where it's like a nomadic community where, it's like an open door thing, right? So anyone can show up at any time and they can stay for 10 days, longer if they're consensed in. And that's kind of space that works for us. We can we can provide a service to humanity or the greater community, and it's all about figuring that out, right? Like figuring out where is our place, because our systems that we're in right now they're all failing us, and they're going to continue to fail us even more. Maybe it looks like it. And so to figure out this kind of stuff, figure out how we have this connection again with nature in our own way.
Yeah.
Is the go-to. And for me right now, like I said at the start, it's often peeing outside. I'm not wasting my pee in a toilet and flushing away a bunch of water and just wasting it. You know what I mean? Going out there and anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's really cool to hear what you guys have learned. You seem like young people, and so you've had enough experiences and you're intelligent enough to like see through a lot of the ideology that separates people with the sort of like it should be this way, it should be that way. And it's really sweet to hear how you're really understanding the essence of what it is that we need as humans. Just connection and feeling like we're not harming others. We're not harming the planet or our land. We're having, good, sweet connection with people and place. And, if you don't get that, if you don't realize that that's really what we're going for, it's not like some pie in the sky utopia. then you'll never really be satisfied or happy, because then you can't really be in the present and just be like, look how we're having this sweet conversation. This is what it's all about.
Yeah, for sure. We've definitely gone through different stages of, going places and being like, this is not how it should be, or whatever, or like just feeling really passionate about. But I think, it's just, we're all trying in our own way, and and also there's so much, there's a lot, even between communities, you see a lot of, like judging the other communities and how they're doing it and stuff like that. I don't know if you ever experienced that, but it's like, I think it's just natural a little bit, but also it's like, we're all on the same team also at the end of the day, compared to a lot the way, we're trying, and so it's like, even if we don't exactly like how that community is working or running, it's like they're trying, and we're all trying. So,
well, that is a very generous perspective. I'm like thinking of a certain place, and I'm like, are they trying? Are they really trying? What exactly are they trying? Because I'm not.
There's so much gossip we could get into on this podcast if we wanted to make it really like. There's so much community drama, but right now we just there's also tons of interesting other things.
We're being good kids.
We're not going to be drama.
Is the intentional community that you were vibing with originally like 20 is that still around?
Well, I'm not sure which you're talking about. I've lived in a few different ones, and like I think of the two I'm thinking of right now. Lost Valley Educational Center is still around. Arcosanti is still around.
Okay, cool. So you're in Arcosanti. That's what. So we need to go there. We need to get someone on there. Our friend goes there, CJ, a lot. Seems cool. I want one of the bells, but they're too pricey for me. I want one of the bells.
Well, I wouldn't call them an intentional community, or at least when I lived there, which was 25 years ago now. So, things have changed a lot. Paolo Soleri died and everything. And then it took a while for the sort of the hierarchy structures to change. But, it's an interesting place.
We'll get them on the podcast at some point.
And so, like, for someone who's, doing their 6-month apprenticeship, I know we've talked about it a lot, but I'm sure people are out there, interested in checking out the spot. Like, what would the average day or week look like for someone who's doing this apprenticeship?
Okay, so there's 3 different programs that we have, and I think I just want to differentiate between them. So there's what we call apprenticeships are when people aren't actually living here, but just come to, when they are locals, basically it's an opportunity for locals to come once a week and be committed to joining us, and it's the residencies that are where people live here, and that's for at least a month at a time. It has to be at least a month. And that situation is like, we ask for a combination of rent and hours worked. And so it's, we come together twice a week when we're working together, and we have that morning meeting and everything. And then we're off on our projects those days. And then they have, their own, they do the chores, like maybe they're feeding the chickens or, doing the compost, kind of on their own time. And we connect with each other as we're walking through the site. We might spontaneously be like, hey, let's share dinner together today, or let's play music or whatever. So that's kind of what the residency is. And then it's a 6-month, we call it the Earth Start Land Practice Mentorship Program. And that's mostly online, is the mentorship program. So that is, we're just going to be starting that probably in late June. And so that'll be like weekly meetings and an online platform where you can, like, the participants can share their own projects, what's going on with their own projects. And then also I'll be teaching classes on like gray water, rain catchment, on land restoration, natural building, and showing a lot of the process of what we've been through here. And then also we have a camp out, so everybody's invited to come and be here for a long weekend and experience the site and do the solar cooking and do all that together. And then there also part of it is just like somatic practices. So practices that I'll assign that are about like connecting with water, connecting with land, and like going out to the place where seeing if you can collect some clay near where you live, identify the clay, identify the sand, and see how, because those are the two things you need for doing earth and plasters or building adobes, or so having these exercises that people do on their own and then come together and share online and share about their projects and not just your project, but like helping people connect deeper with the place where they are, including like the natural history and understanding the ecology and the colonial patterns of your place. And
so cool. And so
like
is that like you need to sign up for the whole 6 months, or can you just join in there at random time? And is that
Yes.
and where are we in
6
that
months.
journey? Are you already doing that right now? Have you already got a group, or?
No, we are collecting people right now, and now's a great time to contact us about it. We don't have all the details up yet on our website, which is www.ampersandproject.org. But it's on there, and you can see what the plan is in general, and you can see more about me and my teaching style and what other people have said about their experience with ampersand and everything. So it's going to be starting at the end of June. So I definitely encourage people to contact me about it, right? Because right now, I have like a handful of people who want to be a part of it, and I'm able to talk with them about what it is they're really looking for and what excites them about it. So we're still sort of designing it, getting the online platforms all worked out. So it's an opportunity to design it around the people who are really interested. So that's what's going on right now.
It seems like that's such a cool educational experience. I if we had time, I would do it myself. I was like, that sounds really cool. Cool.
Yeah,
I'm excited about it. It's called the earth-style mushroom. I saw the video. That's your local mushroom, huh? That's so wild.
Yeah. They're so beautiful, aren't they?
It's crazy. It's hard to imagine, mushrooms in the desert, so, and for one like that to be also so beautiful too. Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, they have, these leathery, it's like the desert, they have this leathery protection. And then when the puffball inside gets big, then it starts cracking open and it makes this star shape that's just pointing up at the cosmos. It's very magical.
Oh, amazing.
Cool.
Well, we'll link everything related. So if anybody who listens to this wants to check it out, then
awesome.
Yeah. Thanks so much for coming on. This was a fun conversation.
Thanks, Amanda.
Yeah, this was really fun to meet you guys.
Yeah, we'll see you if we're in New Mexico. We probably will be soon.
Okay, definitely. Okay, yeah. Come contact me. Stop
See you
by.
later.
Bye, Amanda.
Bye.
Okay, take care.